welcome to a review of, well, I keep wanting to say Larry the Cable Guy, like the actor, but no, the Cable Guy. Not starring Larry the Cable Guy, strangely enough, he's not in the movie. It is starring, I didn't turn the TV off when I was playing video games, Jim Carrey. I'm a big fan of Jim Carrey movies. I don't know if you knew this about me or not, but I really love them. So I saw it on Netflix and I'm like, what's this about? So I checked it out. It's Matthew Broderick plays a guy who he proposed to his girlfriend and she said no and he moved out. And he's trying to win her back. He wants to win her back. He misses her, and he has a friend named I think Rick, Jack Black, played by Jack Black, who's surprisingly not that funny in this movie, even though I normally think he's another one of my favorite comedians. And he plays this guy who's friends with Matthew Broderick's character. We're just gonna call him Broderick. And he tells Broderick to ask the cable guy who's coming to hook up his cable for a free movie package, or pay him $50 to give him the movie package. And then the cable guy comes, who is Jim Carrey. He's this eccentric, like crazy goofball cable guy. And Broderick asked him to. His name is Chip Douglas, by the way, at least supposedly. We'll get into that later. And he asked him to hook up his cable for him, and so Chip takes that as a gesture of friendship, and then they become like friends. Which it's Jim Carrey basically plays that annoying friend that you think is annoying, but you're still friends with because you see that they're actually a good person, and you feel sorry that they don't have very many friends, that kind of a friend. And so he plays that guy, and all this stuff happens. I really like the first hour of this movie where he's friends with him. He helps him get his girlfriend back, gives him advice on like, oh, there's this movie that girls like that is playing soon. Just tell your girlfriend you're gonna watch that. I'll tell the girl, and he does, and it's very nice. And he hosts a party, and he actually is a surprisingly good party host, the cable guy. And he gives him this cool TV stereo system, which this movie came out in '89, I think. So the stereo system is like huge and gigantic, and like by modern day standards would be old and archaic, but I guess back then was really good. And it's funny. Jim Carrey's probably at his best. There's a scene where they go to medieval times and fight in the ring because Jim Carrey sends them to find the ring. And it is hilarious. It's probably one of my favorite things. But then the last half hour happens. Basically, Broderick tells Carrey that he can't be friends with him anymore. And Jim Carrey goes out for revenge. He gets Broderick arrested and makes him lose his job. Just goes complete nutcase, and it's freaky because it turns into a dark comedy. It's like a whole different movie. Like Jim Carrey's character in the last half hour does not match his character in the first hour. In the first hour, he's just, like I said, that annoying friend. But in the second half hour, he's like this devious, evil, like psychopath. And you find out that he's actually not a cable guy, that he got fired for stalking customers. And it's just like, that does not match the character that was in the first hour. The first hour, they did so good with making every character relatable. Even the ones they set up to be like jerks, like Rick, Jack Black, the one played by Jack Black, he was set up to be a jerk to Chip. But then he ends up being a good guy because they change it all up and make Jim Carrey the villain. I mean, even there's a scene where Jim Carrey goes to the girl that Broderick was with, her new date with this guy named Steven, who's played by Owen Wilson. And he like sneaks into the bathroom and like pays the guy who like in fancy restaurants they'll have that one guy who just stands in the restroom, like next to the sink, like with the fancy suit and stuff. He pays off that guy to go away, and then Owen Wilson comes in there, Steven, and he beats him up. It's like, stay away from whatever the girl's name was. She's taken. And even after that scene, I still kind of was sympathetic for him. I mean, I didn't support what he did there, but I was sympathetic for him. But then, after Broderick just flat out tells him, no, I don't want to be your friend, the movie just takes this completely different turn, which I did not like. I mean, I've always hated those movies where, like, the one, like, psychopathic character ruins the life of another character. I've always hated seeing stuff like that. Like, I just can't watch movies like that. But I still would have preferred, like, they went dark humor with it, right? And I would have been fine if they'd gone dark humor with the whole movie. I wouldn't have enjoyed it because it's not my thing, but it would have been a better movie, like, regardless of my personal preference. Because the real issue is not the dark humor. The issue is the tones don't match. The first hour is like in a buddy and annoying buddy comedy, and the last half hour is a, like, thriller psychopath type movie about a crazy cable guy who goes around, who ruins the life of a dude, and then the end, after the climactic scene, they try to play off Jim Carrey's character as just a lonely guy looking for a friend again, and in, like, the last scene, and it just doesn't work for me, and it just doesn't work, because, like, he's being put into the ambulance and he, like, starts making jokes, and they're Matthew Broderick and his girlfriend, who they're now together, so I guess he did get them together at one point for him. Are, like, somewhat nice to him, and I after all the stuff he did in the half hour, because it's crazy, you have to watch it to see how much he did. It's ridiculous. I mean, he tried to kill Broderick's girlfriend, and they just kind of brush it aside. Like, as far as I know, he didn't even get arrested for that. He just got taken away in, like, an ambulance or whatever, in a helicopter ambulance or something. I don't know. And it's just like, after all that, I can't say, oh yeah, he's just a lonely guy looking for a friend anymore. And I really wanted to too, because I liked the lonely guy looking for a friend character. I can kind of relate to that, being a guy that sometimes gets hate for being a bit obnoxious. I can relate to that whole needing a friend, that sort of thing. I can relate to that, even though I have plenty of friends. I can still relate to that concept, but I don't know, they just wrote it. And now on to the second thing about this movie that pissed me off. Oh, and I think I know how this happened. Is I read in the Wikipedia article for the movie, which I know Wikipedia isn't a reliable source, but whatever. It said that originally the movie was going to have a lighter tone, but Jim Carrey and director Ben Stiller, like, kept making it darker and darker. Like, originally it was going to have Chris Farley as the cable guy with an annoying friend comedy, which I like Chris Farley, but this was before he died, but then they cast Jim Carrey, and him and director Ben Stiller slowly changed the script. Like they went through rewrite after rewrite, each rewrite making it darker and darker, till eventually the main writer actually left the project, and it became like this darker comedy, which was kind of what ruined it, in my opinion. Like, you could see the parts that were written by the original writer that were more lighthearted, the lighthearted comedy, annoying friend thing, and you could see the parts where it had just been taken to a dark humor. So really, and that's what bothers me. It wasn't like an awful movie. It wasn't a bad movie. It was just a movie that got it mixed up in its tone, and it could have been so much more. Probably one of the best Jim Carrey movies, in my opinion, if it didn't take that turn. Also, another weird thing that is kind of a nitpick, but really annoyed me watching this movie. Ben Stiller's the director, right? So what he did was, in the opening credits, well, not really credits, but, like, you know, where there's, like, the opening shots and they have, like, little credits at the bottom, it says, starring Ben Stiller, starring Jim Carrey, and then Matthew Broderick, with no starring above it, when Matthew Broderick's the main role. Ben Stiller was in this movie. He played a character called Sam Sweet, who was a celebrity who had killed his brother, or supposedly, and there was a trial going on as to whether or not he killed his brother. It would show up from time to time on the TV when they were watching TV or whatever. And apparently they were gonna make like there was this whole thing they built up about it, like and the character had a couple lines of dialogue, and he seemed like a really funny character, like, and because it said starring Ben Stiller, I was like constantly waiting the whole movie for his character to somehow get roped into what they were doing, Sam Sweet, as like this crazy eccentric, because he used to be like this kid star of a show that they showed a clip from the fictional show, and it kind of reminded me of like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, but younger kids. And then it went to where he somehow killed his brother, and that character never comes into play. The whole reason for that character showing up again and again on a TV, it all leads to this running gag. It's all one giant gag for a final joke at the end of the movie that wasn't that funny. I'm not gonna spoil the joke because I don't want to ruin it, but it wasn't funny, and I spent the whole movie just waiting for this character to be a part of it, and he never was, and that just annoyed me so much. Like, Ben Stiller, you're the director. You can't put starring you if you made minor cameos that you never even directly interacted with the characters. You can't put starring you. You can't put your name first on the cast list in the opening of the movie with Matthew Broderick's name third without even a star on the list. Just stupid. And, okay, you know what? I'll talk about the gag right now. But if you don't want spoilers as to what the gag is, just click off. 1, 2, 3, 74. All right, go ahead. Okay, so the gag is the whole movie. There's like they keep seeing this guy on the TV, Sam Sweet, like the Sam Sweet trial, and I keep thinking, how's this going to work into the plot? They wouldn't be showing it unless it worked into the plot. It never works into the plot. It all comes down to this one joke at the end where Jim Carrey's character, basically he grew up watching like cable and stuff because his parents were never really there for him, and so he kind of was like he basically blurred the lines between movie and reality, which again I thought was a cool concept and would have worked had the movie stuck with the dark tone, but since it only took that dark tone in the last half hour and not in the first hour, it ended up not working. But voices up there distracting me. You hear them, right? Dang it. Oh right, yeah. So he like, I know what I must do, and he jumps off the balcony that they're on because they're like at the satellite dish that gives the cable to all the people in the city, and he jumps off this balcony and he falls and falls and falls. He survives this, by the way. He falls and lands like on top of the satellite like antenna, like there's like the satellite dish and then there's the little point sticking out. He falls on top of that. It doesn't impale him. He falls like right next to it and bumps it. And what happens is he bumps it and cable goes out for everybody right when they're about to say whether Sam Sweet is guilty or innocent. It's like, Sam Sweet has been found, and then it goes because he crashes into the thing. It's just the stupidest gag. I mean, I wouldn't have minded the gag except for that Ben Stiller put his name as the first credit, and so I spend the whole movie just wondering when his character's going to tie in, and then the Sam Sweet stuff never actually ties in. It just ends up being for one gag at the end of the movie. It's like, really? You could have used that for so much more. I mean, the little bit we saw of the character I thought was pretty entertaining, and I was eagerly awaiting when the character came into the movie, because I like Ben Stiller. I think he's a funny guy. And they could have thrown his character into the movie and made it so much funnier, almost a Zoolander-esque type thing, where he just plays some crazy, eccentric guy. Like, if you haven't seen Zoolander, that's a great movie, I'd check it out. Great comedy, starring Ben Stiller. But, and it just bothered me that happened, and it's just all just led to a cheap gag. It was just a disappointing movie, and it could have been more too. It could have been a lot better than it was if they hadn't gotten mixed up in the tone and taken it that alternate direction. or even if they had gone full dark, and it still would have been a better movie for it. But the mixed tone between the first hour, which I thought was great, and the last half hour, which I thought was very poorly done, and basically ruined everything that was good about the first hour. But yeah, I'd say, I guess, if you like dark humor and you like Jim Carrey and you can get past the stupid twist at the end, I'd say watch it. But if you don't like dark humor and you don't like Jim Carrey, or either or, if you don't like dark humor or Jim Carrey and you can't get past that twist, then don't watch it. And don't be fooled by the Ben Stiller thing, because that also kind of messed up the movie for me. Is that the whole movie I just been sitting there, now how's Ben Stiller going to work into this? When's Ben Stiller coming? He never came. So yeah, whatever. Magic Conch says arrivederci.